Hey guys, this is Warren from the Paladin Journal, and welcome back to our movie reviews. I know it has been a while since I've done a video on the channel, just real life and just procrastination and just YouTubing blues, where I was just like, it has been a very rough month and a half for me, and I was just like involved in a bunch of things that were going on, so just really couldn't find the time. But I'm really excited for this video, and this is probably going to be one of the biggest videos I ever do on the channel. And that is because, of course, as you can see on the screen, I'm going to be talking about my review for the Superman movie, which came out last weekend. It is written, directed, produced, screenplay, everything by James Gunn, who is also on the screen right now. That is something I don't usually do. This is the first time actually, but I think in this case it's really warranted because without James Gunn, none of this is possible. And of course, we have David Cornsweet as Clark Kent and Superman, Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, Nicholas Hoult, who's playing Lex Luthor brilliantly, I might add. Eddie Gathegi playing Mr. Terrific, breakout role and breakout character from the movie. Absolutely. We have Nathan Fillion playing Guy Gardner. I've only ever seen Nathan as what's his name, Hal Jordan, because he's done a lot of voiceover work for Hal Jordan and a variety of animated projects. Seeing him as Guy Gardner, oh my God. I knew it was going to be a divisive thing. It certainly is, but he is brilliant. We have Isabella Merced playing Hawkgirl, Anthony Carrigan as Metamorpho, and Wendell Pierce as Perry White. That that rounds up most of the main cast and everyone who's like really super important. But I would love first off, I thought this movie had perfect casting in every single role, top to bottom. No one is wasted, and every character gets their own time to shine in this movie, which is really not, it's not normal. It's usually seen as a huge challenge, but somehow this ensemble cast, it just works. All the characters, they have really great chemistry, and you can just see all the hard work that has gone into this movie. And, like I keep saying, absolutely brilliant stuff. Loved it. But just I want to take a few moments before I start talking about the movie in earnest. I just want to take a few moments to say that, like I said earlier, James Gunn, without him, this movie is not possible. There's so much that happened prior to work on this movie beginning, and with some of the problems he was having with Marvel and Disney over some age-old stuff, and there's this whole the ball just gets rolling. The DCU is in trouble, the MCU is on its heights, and stuff shifts around, and voila, we have James Gunn making the move to over to DC, and suddenly it's like, things change in a big way. Like right now, James Gunn, along with Peter Safran, they are the two heads of DC Studios, essentially, when it comes to the movies and the TV shows and, just whatever. And while I'm not a huge fan of David Zaslav, who's the president or CEO, whatever, of Warner Brothers, I'm not a fan of Peter Safran. Um, but what James Gunn establishes in this movie and for the rest of the DCU, I think is highly commendable. There was a big question on whether the guy who's brought us, the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, the guy who's brought us Peacemaker, can he really do a Superman movie? Does he have the chops, despite everything? Does he have his pulse? Does he have his hand on the pulse of what makes Superman great? And I'm here to tell you, this movie is probably going to be the most important movie of the last 20 years. The MCU kicked off with Iron Man, huge movie. Very quickly they bring in Captain America, the first Avenger. They bring in Thor. They bring in all these other characters. We have there was this aborted attempt with Edward Norton's Hulk, but that transitioned into Mark Ruffalo's Hulk for the Avengers, and just everything has changed. You know, the Avengers is one of the most seminal movies we have ever gotten in the superhero world. Of course, you have, the old greats like the Michael Keaton Batman, the Christopher Reeve Superman, and we have had, the Blade movies. And the X-Men movies, especially the first couple movies, they're really, really good movies, and so much more over the years, right? But let's forget about the past for a second, and let's talk about the future of the DCU, the DC universe, which is like like the MCU, you have the DCU, and it's like, what is going on? We have had every single movie we've had. Well, not every single movie. There's been a bunch of live action stuff that's been just about, Clark Kent and Superman, origin story of how the characters get to where they are in Metropolis and moving beyond that. Superman Returns with Brandon Routh in, I believe, 2005, 2006. That was an attempt to do a movie that, just throws you into the world. Stuff has happened, and we're just in this world right now. The characters are all established. There's some long backstory that we probably don't get to see. And what happens? Unfortunately, the story for that movie was weak, even though we got some really good performances from Brandon Routh and a bunch of other actors, one of whom I'm loath to say the name, so I won't say it. But it was a touchstone movie. But at the same time, we had Smallville running on the small screen on television. And in the last few years, our Superman has been Tyler Hoechlin on Superman and Lois. Amazing performances. We had like the modern time for Superman has never been better. If you look at the body of work that has come out in the last 25 years. But somehow every actor has managed to, leave their own mark. Tom Welling did that. Brandon Routh did that. Brandon Routh did such a great job that in the CW, the superhero verse, he was brought back as Superman, the Kingdom Come version of Superman, or adjacent to that. And we have had one of my favorites, Henry Cavill. Now I know it's been very divisive, but I think he made a really good Superman in a very different context. It's not the usual bright, sunny disposition type of thing, and it's not the, extremely relatable. The movies were dark, they were very serious, and that can have it can have an impact on the psyche. But I still feel they were very important. I'm certainly a huge fan of Man of Steel, despite some of the obvious, the mistakes that the movie makes with its story and with the direction of the story as it happens. But all the same, I was ready for something different here. The DC movieverse has been in trouble for the last few years. The last movie they released, what is it, The Flash with that, you know, criminal Ezra, whatever his name is, Ezra Miller. And this is the first step in a 10-year plan that Peter Safran and James Gunn have cooked up. And I want to say they could not have kicked off on a better note. Like this movie is absolutely perfect. Almost, but almost perfect. I have almost no notes for this movie except this one small, plot point that was very important in the middle of the movie, and I feel that it didn't get much or any attention by the end. And I was hoping that there would be some kind of resolution to that plot point because it was a very important one and it relates to why in the trailer, or in one of the trailers, you see the people of Metropolis they're throwing things at Superman. And in an early version of that trailer, he winces when he's hit. He reacts for some reason that was taken out of the uh, you know copy that was released later for that same trailer, and stuff that happened. So it's like it was a very important plot point, and I certainly get what they were going for, but I wish it had been given more attention. But all the same, start to finish, I enjoyed this movie like from the very first moment. The first word you see on screen is like 3 years. I don't remember exactly, but it's like so 3 years ago, Superman reveals himself to the world. Clark Kent comes to Metropolis. 3 hours ago or 3 days ago, he makes some kind of an intervention in the country of Boravia, Jahanpur. He makes some kind of an intervention in this country of Jahanpur against the country of Boravia. 3 hours ago, the Hammer of Boravia attacked Superman. 3 minutes ago, Superman loses for the first time ever. He gets his shit kicked in. And that kicks off the very first actual scene from the movie, which is, we meet Superman in the Arctic and he's beaten up like hell. He's bleeding. His bones are broken. He's absolutely devastated. And I was like, I was not prepared for that to be the start of the movie. It's like, I knew there wasn't going to be, it wasn't going to be an origin story or anything. It was going to push it straight into the world. But this was a very like rough intro, and by rough I mean that it's like it's hammers at you, right? And it's like, okay, so you are in the story right now. We are not gonna do a build up. We're just gonna drop you straight in, and it makes you a little bit uncomfortable when you see Superman loses for the first time. It's like I'm literally like sitting there with my head in my hands, and my kids are sitting next to me, and they're like, "Dad, what's going on?" And I'm like, "Just watch." And Superman comes in, he's beaten, and my daughter, who is my oldest, she's like, "Why is he bleeding?" I'm like, "Just watch." And like for the whole movie, they just keep asking questions. I'm like, just watch. Because I don't know what's happening. I don't have all the backstory here for this version. So I'm like, just trying to make things up, explain the best I can. And then it's like, he calls Crypto. Crypto comes, he does his whole thing that we've seen from the trailer. And then they go to the Fort of Solitude. I'm like, one of the biggest intro scenes of the movie is watching Superman get his ass kicked, and then we watch the Fortress of Solitude. The Fortress of Solitude is one of my most loved locations within the entire lore of Superman. His it's his home away from home, the place where he goes to be just himself, and he is learning about Krypton. He's learning about his parents and everything, his culture, the traditions and everything. That's his. It's a time capsule in a lot of different ways, and everything that happens later, it's like just amazing. Every thing that happens, all the dialogue in the movie, it is so intentional. Like, here's going to be some spoilers. If you have not seen the movie yet, I suggest you skip a little bit ahead. But I'm going to be talking about spoilers for the rest of the video. So maybe, just go straight to the end. But just know that I think this was a wonderful movie. Great story, good pacing, great characters, amazing visuals, and some really, really pointed commentary on the rear wall. And I think that's at the crux of why this movie is so great. Because it makes Superman, it makes Lex Luthor, it makes Lois Lane, it makes all these characters relevant to the modern times. When the A little bit after, the scene I just described to you with the Fortress Solitude and everything, there's a scene where Lois Lane is attempting to interview Superman. They're having a little bit of back and forth, playing with each other. They've been dating for 3 months now, and everything. And there's a certain like familiarity that's going on, but Lois is trying to be professional. Superman is not. And one of their interactions, one of their fights, so to speak, is about why he intervened in Jaranpur against a U.S. ally, that being Boravia. And he just got his shit kicked by the Hammer Bravia, who's apparently some kind of metahuman that was, I guess, hiding in Bravia from best we know. But of course, a certain billionaire is behind him, and she's asking him, "Why did you do that? Why did you not consult with the American political leaders? Why did you take steps on your own? Why didn't you talk in a peaceful way with the Baravians? Why did you take their president and, essentially torture him with a cactus, so to speak, and everything?" And he's like, lives were in danger. I had to act. And that's just like, that is quintessentially Superman. That's quintessentially Clark Kent. This guy, he doesn't care about consequences. He is always going to do the right thing and to hell with everything else, right? Yes, I know that is very specifically against the point that is made in Man of Steel when Superman fails to save his father from dying. But I think that is a separate commentary on its own. And here, this is different character, different motivations, and this is not the dark world that we've seen before, right? Just like Batman Begins, The Dark Knight Rises, those were essentially very dark stories. A lot of stuff happens in those movies that you wouldn't tend to see in, say Batman the animated series or in a lot of different kinds of Batman movies. So, and that's all a reaction to the popularity of, the gritty, grim, dark kind of vibes. So, put that aside for now. This is us going back to the roots of the character Superman. He's like, I have to act. I cannot just sit by and watch people suffer, watch people die. And again, this is repeated, in as indirect commentary or direct commentary throughout the movie. He is always going to act in people's best interest as he sees it because he's like, I have to save everybody. Wherever I can, I'm always going to save everybody. That is my mission. That is what my parents have sent me here to do. One of the most striking scenes from the trailer is when he's rescuing a little girl from some exploding scenery or whatever. And that happens in the middle of a big major fight. And he's fighting a particular enemy, and he just takes this moment, save the little girl. And that highlights that, yeah, he is always going to save lives. In another fight, later on, he saves a squirrel. It's like, oh, this, this is the kind of Superman that you see in the cartoons, or it's the kind of Superman that people think is, the overly goody two shoes. I think it might have been in Batman versus Superman when Clark Kent and Bruce Wayne meet, and they're talking about, Batman talking about Superman. I think um, Batman or Bruce Wayne makes the comment that you guys write a puff piece about every time he saves some an animal, a kitten from a tree or something, or maybe it's something I've read in a comic. But it's like that was such pointed commentary in that moment, right? He has all this other stuff to worry about, but he takes the time because he's got super speed, he's got super strength, he's got super durability. He is going to save that damn squirrel. He's not going to let anyone get hurt, whether they're people or they're animals. He respects everyone equally. And of course, that has an impact on how we end the movie with another great speech where he's just like, dude, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna give away a speech, but essentially, he explains who he is. He explains his worldview, and that is such a absolutely beautiful thing. And of course, David is an amazing Superman. I think he's also an amazing Clark Kent, and he has, like I said, such great chemistry with all the other characters, or other actors. With Rachel, with Nicholas Hoult's Lex, with Perry White, Wendell Pierce, with Nathan Fillion's Guy Gardner, Eddie Gadegi's Mr. Terrific, Anthony Carrigan's Metamorpho, and Isabel Merced's Hawkgirl. And yeah, and that's another thing, right? In the movie, the Justice Gang, which is Mr. Terrific, Guy Gardner, and Hawkgirl, he is friends with them. These are three guys who are part of the Justice Gang. It's a metahuman, essentially club that is being funded by the billionaire Maxwell Lord, who hilariously is being played by James Gunn's brother Sean Gunn, who has also made cameos in Guardians of the Galaxy. He's a part of the crew of the ship that Star Lord used to be a part of, and it's like amazing stuff, right? There's so many things that are like thrown all over the place, and it just like makes a thing, and it's like there's never a point, I think, in the movie where any one character is treated as if excuse me, where one character is treated as if they're inferior in some way. Everyone gets their time to shine. So we get Jimmy, he gets his time to shine. Perry White gets his time to shine. Lex Luthor's girlfriend, Eve Tessmacher, she gets to shine. You know, of course, in this version, she's his girlfriend, and she's like an Instagram influencer or something. She's always taking selfies, blah. Even while stuff is going down in Metropolis all the damn time. You know, everybody gets the time to shine. And speaking of that, again, it's like the cast is amazing. The actors are amazing. Eddie Gathegi, like I said earlier, breakout star and breakout actor from this movie. We've seen him before as a superhero in X-Men First Class, where he played Darwin, and he was done so dirty. I know people have been bringing it up nonstop in like the last 2 weeks, especially since the movie launched and people have seen what his character gets to do. And man, that guy delivers. I've seen him in so many different shows. Most notably in For All Mankind, he was in season 4, I think, for all season 4. Brilliant actor. He always gets some really great uh, roles to sink his teeth into, and I think this might be one of his best ones to date. Mr. Terrific, I love the character. I've never really seen much of him, maybe in the Justice League cartoons or some other throwaway cartoon over the years, but this was like one of the biggest stages, platforms the character could have had. And Eddie Gathegi, he is like absolutely brilliant, start to finish. He convinces he is the guy. His dialogue delivery is amazing. His comic timing is amazing. And just the scenes that he gets to do. He gets to do action scenes. He gets to do all the, fancy scientific mumbo jumbo scenes. And it's just like, and Mr. Terrific, he is such a great foil to Lex Luthor because Lex Luthor, he's a billionaire. He's this genius scientific mind, but he has devoted his life to, you know, just doing the worst possible stuff. Whereas Mr. Terrific, he's doing the best possible stuff. Of course, his pipeline is being funded by a billionaire on his own side, but it's like still, great stuff. Guy Gardner, man, Nathan Fillion delivered an amazing performance. I absolutely did not know he had it in him. I loved him for 20 years, ever since I saw Firefly, I saw Buffy, and I've loved him ever since. And this is, of course, I've just finished a full watch through of like 5 seasons of The Rookie. Amazing show with him. I have season 6 queued up at the moment. We'll be getting it soon. He delivers a great performance. He convinced me that despite knowing him as Hal Jordan in the past, that he is Guy Gardner, one of the most, you know, a-hole-ish characters ever to be seen in DC Comics. He is that guy. He delivers a performance that is that good. And Isabella Merced as Hawkgirl, I am still sad that, the version of Hawkgirl we got in Black Adam, we're not going back to all of that. So, there's a recast here. But sorry, not Black Adam, different. Sorry, the CW version with two different uh, actresses, I believe, or something like that. But yeah, I love that version. But she's also amazing here. She gives us this new look at the character, and they really do lean into a lot of some of the like the more the fantastical side of Hawkgirl, and I absolutely love that. James Gunn just drops you straight into this world, and everything is just working. Everything like it fits neatly into place with this whole large puzzle that is happening, and it's like you sit down, you look at the movie, you analyze it in your brain, and you're like, every single character, every single actor was pretty much perfect. The actors who play his parents, they don't look like any of you know don't really look like any of the parents, any of the Kents that we've seen before in live action, maybe even you could say the cartoons. Um, but it's like it's not the look that really matters, it's what they say. what they act like, you know? And it is so important that, I think, I really love that James Gunn has his, you know, godlike character give him some humanity. When he's trying to save a little girl from exploding shrapnel, when he's trying to save a squirrel from being crushed, when he's trying to save, dozens of people from being crushed by a falling building, when he's trying to save a single baby somewhere in the movie, when he's trying to just trying to get wrap his head around all the stuff that's just coming at him left and right nonstop. The character is humanized, and we also see him taking a mental health break in the middle of the movie. I thought that was brilliant. It's like it's exploring the side of Superman in live action movies that we've never really seen. This deep introspective look at the character that also marches lockstep with the more outlandish things, the more heroic things, and it's amazing how he has pulled it together. And of course, can't really ignore the big elephant in the room. Yeah, the movie is absolutely a criticism of real world events and real world people. Lex Luthor, James Gunn's Lex Luthor, is a combination of not only Elon Musk, but also of Donald Trump. The country of Moravia and its president, they're all a commentary on the state of Israel and its prime minister. Jahanpur is a reflection of Gaza. What Donald Trump has said in the past, that he wants to erase Gaza, he wants to erase the entire Gaza Strip and set up a Riviera there, you know, this nonsense stuff. And you know, Elon Musk is like he dabbles in all these technologies that he's basically appropriated from different people and different companies and made it his own. And then he's just absolutely reckless with all of that. You look at how his Cybertrucks are failing. You look at how his self-driving cars are failing, and just everything else. How SpaceX continues to have one after another rocket explode, either on the launch pad or a few minutes into its flight while it's still in the atmosphere and all that stuff. That is Lex Luthor. He's careless with his technology. He doesn't care about people. He has built up a cult of personality around him, and he has convinced people to act in their own worst interest. Not the best interests, on the worst interests. And people just worship him, and he tries to, manipulate social media and everything. And he's trying to, do a lot of stuff that these two a-holes have done in the real world. And it's like, this is not an original thought by no means at all. An immigrant beats up a billionaire in this movie, metaphorically speaking. And it's just a triumph of how you make Superman relevant to the modern world. His trunks are back. The red trunks are back. They didn't exist in Smallville, really. His whole outfit didn't exist. Brandon Routh showed that a little bit. Man of Steel version of Henry Cavill Superman didn't have the trunks. It was just a full, like a bodysuit kind of thing. But here, the colors are bold and the trunks are back in the front. And it's like, yeah, don't take him too seriously, you know? Revel in the fantastical nature of this super being, you know? A guy who has all the power in the world and how he controls himself every single day and how his real power is not the actual physical power, but it's a power of his beliefs, it's a power of his upbringing, and just how he interacts with the entire world. Even when the entire world is against him, he is still going to do what is right because that is how he was raised. That is what he believes his mission to be. And just overall, like I said, Amazing visuals, some really, really great battle scenes. You get dropped into one straight off, and there are like, I don't know, five different great battle scenes in the entire movie. All the characters, everything is just so perfect. Like I said, there's only one point. I'm not going to give a spoiler on what that is because that would be a little bit over the top. But suffice to say, also, that one negative thing, I have no notes on this movie. If I were to give this an actual rating, I would give it 9.5 out of 10, taking that half point only for that I think unresolved plot point. But it starts on a great note, it ends on a great note. It made me like there were so many times in doing like the battle scenes and stuff where I'm like, yes, I shout a little bit. And fortunately, the theater wasn't too crowded because we caught a bit of an earlier viewing, but on the weekend. But it's like I could do that, you know, and I'm hoping to go tomorrow to see the movie again in IMAX. It is something I really want to do because I believed it was going to be an experience. It was an experience, and I highly, highly, highly recommend this movie to everybody. Whether or not you're a fan of Superman, whether you know anything about the character or not, just go see this movie. It has great characters of color. The women are not, you know, they're not, what's the word? They're not damsels in distress, really. They have their own agencies. Superman gets called out on his beliefs. He doesn't get any softball questions in his interview. Amazing chemistry with all the actors, whether the ones that are in good relationships, or whether the ones that are in bad relationships. Like Lex Luthor versus Superman, etc., and so on and so forth. We have the triumph of you know positive masculinity in this movie, the triumph of positive masculinity over toxic masculinity, the power of essentially goodness over evil in this movie. It is stark, it is clear. Everything in the movie is telling you these guys are really bad. Don't fall into the trap. This guy is good. He has problems of his own, but he is trying to do the right thing, waking up every day, going out the door, and just making the best of it. Which reminds me of the scene from Spider-Man: No Way Home, which came out a few years ago. It's the movie with Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, Peter Parker, um, the Tom Holland one, and Andrew Garfield. And there's a scene towards the end of the movie where Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man he meets Doc Ock, and Doc Ock is just like, "How you doing, dear boy?" And you know Tobey Maguire's character responds, "Trying to do better," or something like that. And it's like that was such a great point in Spider-Man 2 back in the day, you know, and they reference that again in that movie. And again, here, this is what Superman is. He's always trying to be better. I've rambled on long enough, I'll say, but again, this movie made me feel really good. I still love Man of Steel as a movie, despite its many flaws. And this is a movie that is so, opposite of that, but I would also say that, this is going back to some earlier roots of not just the character in live action, but going back to the roots of the origins of this character, right? Going back to the 40s and 50s and 60s, the golden age. There's so many references, so many heroes, so many characters, all get referenced here. So much stuff that it's perfect melding of the old and the new, the past and the present and the future and everything. James Gunn, man, hats off to this guy. He pulled off something that so many people over the years have been saying could not happen, wouldn't work. Man of Steel was a flop, blah blah blah. We don't want dark, we want this, we want that. It's woke, it's nonsense, all that. Just tune out all that noise, right? Go see this movie. You're gonna enjoy it. Take your kids. My kids are 7.5 and 4, and they enjoyed the hell out of this movie. Even my son, who's my youngest, even he's asking questions. Dad, why did this happen? Why did that happen? He understood. He liked. everything that was going on with Superman. He liked the dog, and it's like the movie has some really good cameos also, right? And one of the last cameos in the movie, oh, made me so damn happy to see that. And it's like, yeah, it's gonna tie in to one of the other movies that's coming out next year. But wow, what an ending, right? And overall, this is Superman as he was in live action at the height with Smallville. And, this is like also going back to the Christopher Reeve era, which was just amazing in itself. And it's like, yeah, this is perfect. Love it. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching the video. Please make sure to like and subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I'll see you again very soon with another review. Very soon. Thanks, guys. Bye.